Hi, I'm Colin Hambrook, editor of Disability Arts Online. I'm an older white man wearing glasses and sitting in my living room. I'm delighted to present Mirrored to the Core, a short film that explores voice hearing through the story of two young people, a white man and a black woman who meet in a small open-air theatre in the Round. Operatic voices represent the young lovers' subconscious as the action moves to an underground car park before the scene changes to find our characters on a park bench. They move through the park and along a city street before returning to the open-air theatre. We'll show the film before meeting lead artist James Paddock and our small panel of artists involved in the project.
T-shirt on, great. Put a bit of love desire up to the conscious. Maybe, don't forget, make her smile.
So we'll see if you can make him remember the director.
No chance. To the right, right there you are.
Hey, I just thought I had to say hello.
Hello.
It's your t-shirt. It's that French film, isn't it? What's the name of the director? I can never remember the name of directors.
Yeah, me too. Don't ask me who directed this film. It's the one where the guy keeps meeting the woman randomly in Paris. Yeah.
If only they knew we've been chatting for years now.
Yeah, what's it called?
I can never remember the title of
Films
films
either.
Finally, our conscious minds meet.
Yeah, especially French films. You know, I'm just off to see that cutting-edge art exhibition at the gallery.
Yeah, me too. It seems great. Can I walk there with you? Come on. Let's go downtown to the most cutting-edge art exhibition there.
Hold on, who are you chatting to?
Just myself.
Okay, don't worry. I do that too. In conversation with my subconscious. No small talk then.
We are so thank you would be nice. I'm always thankful to be alive, to have original thoughts. Don't go with the mainstream, go with your train of thought.
Life is not for yesterday or tomorrow. It's for today. I'm with you right now.
The mind is so delicate, humans are fragile, easily hurt. Humans just keep messing up. We need to live for the moment.
Being with you is amazing right now. Forever, I don't know. But here and now, I'm loving it. Look at you, listen to you. What you say, I agree.
I'm glad you agree. We are in paradise for this moment. Everything is heightened. Her smell, her expressions, her intellect.
She's observing life. We're checking out life together. We can spin together, engage with creatures. You, my subconscious, loves her. I can feel it here in the pit of my stomach.
We can loop together. Life is not for yesterday or tomorrow, it's for today. Now I'm with you right now.
I live because of benefits. Until Thursday, I'll sip water with you and check out the best art. That's what he wants. Come Thursday, he'll have a beer and buy some alien clothes. From back home. Think of you. Alien.
What door number are you? I've forgotten. It's the one with the old count number on it. It stands out. I'm resisting. I'll eat bread with you. Put our change together. Make change together. Put our change together.
Let the likes of me you have a say. I don't think like the rest of them.
Free dating. Water. Bread. Art. Those dating websites, they're pushing for something. Reality? Love at first sight? We're throwbacks. I feel you to the pit of my subconscious.
What is the agenda there for paying for love as a people's?
Neoliberal, perhaps? Boy, the monetization of everything.
I thought you were going to get some bread. Bread. We were going to make change. Together. I've got too many ideas about life. Our existence.
You're open-minded. I mean really open-minded. I'm just on one.
The state. A strong state is needed.
What's original about that? Go with your own thoughts. But yeah, a strong state is needed. It's crucial. Have a great life.
If we don't meet again,
we are circling.
I know. I knew we'd come back to our beginnings. We found ourselves, our deeper selves. We're back to where we started, back to our beginnings.
we're circling.
You know, everybody's got one prejudice or another. You do too. You struggle with that narrow-minded lot. Spin with me in the moment. You know, here we are, on planet Earth. I have you right now.
The leaders took us out yesterday, and they will tomorrow. But for now, I forgot. They stitched us up a moment ago.
Today we have water, the four of us. We have art that sees things differently. Art is oriental.
Let us have an opening. You think like an alien. You look like one too. Too beautiful for planet Earth. You smell like an alien in paradise. Ask her, ask what's on her level, on your subconscious plane.
There's something else. Ask if she's a spirit. She won't tell you. If there's somewhere after, she won't tell you. Together makes you stronger. Together and clever.
What's happening with your subconscious?
She's very discreet. Where are we going after this? Who knows? Where do you want to go?
To mine?
No, after this, paradise. You know, you're not bad at spinning either.
Hello and welcome to this panel discussion about Mirrored to the Core. My name's Alice Scott Hawkins and I'll be hosting and asking the questions. I'm a white woman in my 40s with grey hair and glasses. I'm wearing a patterned scarf and behind me is a timber wall. First, I'm going to introduce James Paddock. James, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself and describe yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi. Yeah, I'm a white man with glasses, with a shaven head, with a beard, and I'm wearing a very yellow jumper without sleeves and a blue t-shirt. Behind me there's a white door and a white wall. I'm the lead artist on the project. Worked in collaboration on the Mirror to the Core project.
My first question for you, James, is to ask you to tell us a bit more about how the project came about.
Okay, so it first began, it's quite a dry sort of film installation. My initial thoughts were around people with the condition and how some of us feel that we can communicate with telepathy. And with that in mind, I was thinking about what would happen if two lovers would come together who both have the condition, and they're communicating not only on the surface, and when I talk about on the surface, I mean our conscious level, the way we're talking at the moment, and then I'm also talking about subconscious level. So the characters had already, I thought, what would happen if the characters have already telepathically communicated on a subconscious level? And so that was the main idea behind it. And then I was thinking about things about breaking down stereotypes, and the stereotypes around the condition and people not being thinking people, or people being violent and things like that. I wanted to represent people with the condition in a true light. They're gentle. I feel the characters gentle, sort of positive outlook, and presenting their perspectives on life. I was also dealing with poor memory, which can happen with the condition. We're not sure if it's the condition itself, or it could be medication we sometimes take. And so I started looking at that. And then Kai Wilson, who's the project manager for Mirror to the Core, Kai and myself started looking at academic papers around the area of schizophrenia in love, if you like, to use the medical term, or to use a better term about the condition in love. And Kai sent over a few papers. I was looking through these papers, and one paper particularly stood out for me, which was a paper by Professor Tsering and Janelle Caponigra, and it's called Emotions in Schizophrenia, Where Feeling Meets Thinking. And with that, it was talking about how people with the condition can sometimes forget how good love was in the past and how good it can be in the future, and something about whilst being in love in the moment, how good love can be in the moment. You know, it's a heightened sense with people with the condition, perhaps. And so I sort of looked at that, and I started to convert or translate this academic paper poetically into the piece, because I was thinking about memory anyway in terms of the condition. And then so I'm working on this piece, and I'm working on the dialogue and things like that and how it might look. And then Rosalind contacted me from London. Rosalind, who's the opera director on the artwork, and when she contacted me, I just thought, wow, this is incredible, because I've got this artwork or video artwork in front of me, which is a love story about people communicating with heard voices. We got together and we thought, well, wouldn't it be lovely to communicate heard voices via opera? So within the piece, the voices we hear that are operatic are the voices that you would hear with the condition.
Thanks for that introduction to the project. Can you tell us a bit about what you wanted to convey within the narratives in the film?
Well, I pictured the character's subconscious as they had already met, so the subconscious has already telepathically met before the conscious people. Like, as I was saying, it's like us, our conscious world. So, and I've had thoughts around the subconscious being the driver for our lives in humans, in the conscious world, in deeper parts of the mind being the driver for us. So they're directed towards each other by their subconsciouses, in a sense, the characters. And the video art is also about the repression of thoughts in our society, in a sense, and whether our thoughts as people with the condition are taken seriously, and we have alternative thoughts because we might think and have different perspectives on life. And there's also about whether people with class are heard within society, people of maybe humble origins or whatever. And it's like working within censorship as well, you know, it felt a bit like that, with where you're not taken seriously with your thoughts with the condition, and you've got to be careful what you say and different perspectives on life. And so the characters are finding each other, they're kindred souls. So it's not only on the surface they're communicating, but with their subconscious minds as well. It's a love story, but also deeply political as well. It's a moment for the two voice hearers who meet when they're immersed within their voices. They are in a moment. So it's a moment again, a heightened moment in time when their voices are very powerful in their lives. Our predicament in life as voice hearers mean we see things differently, as I say, and we have original thoughts sometimes, you know, that are different than maybe neuroatypical sort of thoughts, and a unique perspective on life. And I wanted to represent that within the artwork.
Brilliant, thank you. And my last question to you for now is, given that it's a artistically complex project, so could you tell us a bit about how you went about pulling all the threads together?
Okay, so part of the condition is that you can work on different layers at the same time, I think. And I wanted to talk about theory and individual thoughts and reflection on the predicament in life, on our predicament in life, people with the condition. And I'm just excited that all the elements, like the politics, the theory, the insight into the deeper parts of the mind and things like that, it's all come together in one piece, you know. And I've been trying to do that for some time, but working with the collaborators on the project, it's just helped me so much to bring these things together. And not only, you know, to bring the grittiness of our everyday lives and the insight of the deeper parts of the mind and all these things, bring them together in one piece. It felt very natural to bring it together, not only when I was working on it, but with the collaborators. So I'm quite happy about that.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, that feels like a timely point to turn to one of the collaborators, Rosalind Parker. Rosalind, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alice. My name is Rosalind Parker. I'm in my early 30s. I'm a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm wearing a turquoise shirt and a blue scarf, and the light is on me, but you can see the shadow of a room behind me. And I'm an opera director, and as James said, I came into the project in a collaborative capacity to help realise the directorial elements with James and work with the composer, Jerome, and the opera singers who play the voices of the subconscious.
Brilliant, thanks Rosalind. My first question for you is to ask where your interest in cross-disciplinary collaborations around neurodiversity and performance come from.
Yes, well, this actually came from personal experience, which is, I've directed opera for a long time, and 8 years ago they discovered a focal lesion in my right hemisphere, and I began to have daily seizures and adult onset epilepsy. and identifying as somebody who's experiencing these aspects of cognitive dissonance every day and navigating daily life as before, I found that very interesting, and I got very interested in the relationship between these kind of cognitive dissonance of the world experiences that I was having and the creative practice I do, which is about cultivating different kinds of visceral experience. So I looked at the link between, or really the possibility I wanted to explore, that opera as such an enormously visceral spectacle of a medium, very, very heightened for people who don't go to opera, or the space you're in with that operatic language can be very powerful on a visceral, emotional level. So I wanted to explore how that could perhaps open out or translate some cognitive dissonance aspects that are otherwise felt in a very subjective and internal way. And I did a double bill of contemporary operas at the ICA Institute of Contemporary Arts. So Nyman's Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Kate Whitley's Unknown Position. And we really explored how the space could maybe enable the audience to be transferred into those different kinds of relationships with space and time that cognitive dissonance enables.
Fabulous. My next question is to ask you what drew you to the Mirrored to the Core project, and what has collaborating with James meant for you?
Wonderful. Well, I was drawn to the project through James, and I, as part of the research enterprise around this double bill I've mentioned, I began contacting and working with various people involved in the arts and artists who identified as not non-neurotypical or neurodiverse, or had histories and relationships with various different kinds of cognitive dissonance. And I came across James and shortly after the project, and was really up for a kind of open invitation about what a collaborative conversation might yield in itself. And then the project came from that, as James has said, offered by James, but it was, I think, incredibly, and remains incredibly exciting for me, that this area is something in which I am coming out of a comfort zone, as far as opera is a comfort zone, and using those tools and those skills and those capacities in this new space, which is somebody else's lead artist environment, and trying to harness the opera within the world of film, which was entirely new. So it was very exciting in the stepping out into this new space to explore this new subject. Great.
How did you work with the musical filmic soundscape, which composed by Jerome? How did that create the layers of operatic input?
So I'm new to film, but I work a lot alongside composers in bringing R&D, research and development process into new opera, because research and development often doesn't particularly belong in the opera world. And I really love engaging singers in that exploratory attitude to voice. And Jerome van der Berghe, the composer, and I seemed very compatible in this way, because his way of working was to offer a very strong musical stimulus of a soundscape world, and the thematic score was all composed, and offerings for musical ideas for the script that James had written. But within that was very receptive and flexible about what the singers would want to offer in terms of their lines. There's a musical term called Sprechgesang, which we use in some opera, which is translated from German, it's speech singing. So it's the kind of melodic, but also offering something of your own speech to it. And in the recording studio, the score wasn't finally laid down. We actually, Jerome and I, played with the singers to bring that out. So I really worked as a bridge, I'd say, between Jerome and the singer to enable some interpretation. And we had a lovely play in the studio. And then from then, Jerome went away and composed the score you'll hear in the piece.
That's fascinating. Thank you. Now we're going to turn to another of the collaborators. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm sitting in front of a white wall on a brown couch with a rainbow cushion and a cushion with a cat on it beside me. I have blonde shoulder-length hair with messy brown roots, and I'm a white woman.
Thanks, Sarah. Do you want to tell us a bit about your role within the project?
Sure. I connected with Rosalind and James early on in the process through my own non-neurotypical experience. I have an acquired brain injury, and they made the project, and I've come back in the later stages to view the work and have a dialogue about really non-neurotypical experiences and how I've engaged with the work and what it means. And it's been a really lovely journey talking to James often about our brains and the variant experiences we have and how he's translated that into the film.
Brilliant. My first question for you is to ask how you see Mirrored to the Core as challenging neurotypical narratives.
Yeah, I think Mirrored to the Core is an incredibly beautiful film, and I think it challenges neurotypical narratives in a very beautiful way through the use of opera, through the use of camera movement and the use of dialogue. What really struck me about it the first time I watched it is the way that these characters are in this external structure, which has its own organization and its own patterning, but through their interaction, they find a way through their surroundings to something else, which is a little bit more internal and heightened, as James said. But I think it's also quite a beautiful example of the subtlety of non-neurotypical conditions. You are in a world that's around you, and there's just these subtle nuances that make your experience and your interaction and your dialogue with other people slightly different and slightly rhythmic. That's what really strikes me, the different rhythms of bodies, and all bodies have different rhythms, no matter whether you're neurotypical or non-neurotypical. But I really enjoyed the way that the addition of opera allows that rhythm and timing and the intersection with the timing of a different world to play out. Yeah, so I think it's a really lovely and honest perception of neurological variance.
What does Mirrored to the Core say about the sense of living outside of time and space?
Yeah, I think it says so much. I mean, there is a line in the opera, I think, in the dialogue as well, where one of the characters says, it's not about yesterday, it's not about tomorrow, it's about today. And I think what's interesting is how you can be in a moment when you have experienced neurological difference. That is a moment, but it's quite distributed in a sense, like it almost feels like your body is distributed in different ways throughout a space or throughout time. So I think that line's really beautiful, and the way in which I also love the cyclical nature of the piece. That really spoke to me in terms of the way in which in a cycle of a day can be very different depending on your neurological position or experience on a particular day, and it often changes quite dramatically from day to day, and often, you know, it can feel for me like there's no difference some days, but I also suffer from vertigo, so in those times the cycle is quite different. So I think that was quite beautiful, this cyclical nature of time, but how the non-neurotypical experiences of the characters really change the way we can be in time and space. But the other things about it in terms of an experience which isn't neurotypical I think the other really beautiful things, it's a story about a working class person. It's a story about cultural diversity. So there are all of these intersecting narratives about bodies in time and space. And I think that that's really important to acknowledge. We all have variant bodies, depending on our cultural upbringing, our background, our socioeconomic position. And I think the idea in the film that these bodies can connect through experience is what is so beautiful to me. Like having an experience, whether it's the same experience or a different experience, how can we listen to the body? And that's really what the characters display, is this listening to themselves and each other in new ways. So that's really lovely.
From your perspectives as an artist and as a teacher, what do you feel are the advantages of telling and hearing non-neurotypical narratives?
Yeah, I suppose I am a performance artist, a writer and a filmmaker, and I often work in participatory contexts. And I've also worked in academia for over 15 years. So that's the perspective that I come from. Again, I would say it's not just about, you know, non-neurotypical experiences. For me, it's about we're all invariant. We all live in different bodies, and how can we create spaces of education or educational spaces or participatory spaces that are really mindful of the way that different bodies interact, that what we hold in our bodies in terms of trauma, in terms of being languaged. We all have radically different experiences. So I think recognition of the way that different people learn, creativity is such an important part of this, how creativity can change our habits. For me, it's really about these habitual ways of organizing educational structures, but every, you know, all other kinds of structure, these habitual way of organizing interactions, and how difference and diversity can change if we listen hard enough to other people, how we can confront our own habitual ways of moving and thinking and allow something else to come in to change our own bodies. And that's when it's really beautiful. So I think, yeah, it's all experiences of difference that are important for education. But I think also in the conversations I've had with James and Rosie about this film, the beautiful space that it created to work in different ways and to value and respect different processes and different rhythms, and really use those as a foundation to create a film. And I think that really shows in the work.
Thank you. My final question for you at this stage is to ask if you have any thoughts on how we might push for greater representation of diversity within the film industry.
Yeah, again, that picks up on this beautiful process that James and Rosalind used to create this work. And when they talk about this sense of communication and collaboration and a space where everyone could feel safe making and creating in a different way, and maybe a little bit more of an intuitive space from the way that they talk about it. Of course, we need diversity in the film industry, but I would not just say the film industry. We need diversity in all industries, people directing, producing, teaching. So really, you know, embedding diversity, not just in front of the screen, but also behind the screen. And again, for me, this comes back to this habitual way of doing things. And often that is so neurologically ingrained and embedded. I know this from having had the injury I've had, where I literally had to rebuild my neurological functioning, the way in which in every industry, the way we work, patterns and routines are just very instinctual because we've done them in certain ways for so long. So bringing diversity into those processes and ways of working, and really allowing the structure to change, that is a big thing for me. I always think, like, something I think about a lot is if we want to decolonize an institution, we have to decolonize ourselves. and our ways of thinking and moving. And the same goes for neurotypicality. If we want to invite diversity into these practices, we have to examine the way that we think and move and try and alter that very cellular level. Yeah, so I think projects like this are a great example of how that can be done, and hopefully serve as research and models for this to come into more commercial contexts.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Sarah. James, I'm going to turn to you again. The question I've got is to ask you how you want people to feel after engaging with Mirrored to the Core.
Yes, well, it'd be nice for people to see neurotypical scenarios. It'd be nice for people to see neurodiverse narratives and the way we live and the perspectives we have, to see it differently, you know. And relating to what Sarah was saying, it's like, unfortunately, there's a narrative around the condition which has a poor authorship to begin with, really, you know. So it's since the 19th century, it was like the label giving schizophrenia onto people, and as a consequence, it's kind of like the way the media and society see us is not actually how we are. So I want the film really to kind of like to break down the stigma, to break down people's perspectives that are given to them by society and the media, and create something new, a new space, in a sense, like other people are doing as well as me, you know, in addressing neurodiversity, really.
Brilliant, thank you. And can you tell us a bit about what plans you have for the project and how it might develop? What's the next stage?
So what I'd really like to do is for it to be a physical exhibition. You know, because of the period we've just been through with COVID and everything, it's kind of like we could only do it as a online event because of the timing of it. But it'd lovely to do a physical exhibition, and there's an artist I've been talking with who I'd really like to work with, who's a international sort of Psi artist, Andrew Carney. And to create something, a sculptural element, and to have this film as the main feature of the exhibition, but to also include snippets of films, and to have various sort of elements taken from the film in the sculptural elements and installation sort of exhibition would be wonderful, you know. And to work with a curator as well. For my first two Arts Council projects, I kind of like created my own shows, but I want to learn from a curator and work with a curator, and, you know, really have a great learning experience from that, and hopefully create a good show with these people.
Fabulous. We'll look forward to that. At this point, I'm going to invite in Colin Hambrook to join the discussion. Colin, over to you.
Thanks ever so much, Alice. It's been a really, really fascinating conversation, and really interesting to see how the project evolved. I'm the editor of Dow, and I'm an older white man in my early 60s, and behind me is a white wall with a drawing that I did of my daughter when she was a toddler, when she was a 3-year-old. And yeah, we're really delighted to be hosting Mirrored to the Core, and helping to promote the film. And it's been wonderful being part of the project, in having conversations with James, and I think I should say I have a background of for a lot of my life, I've kind of described myself as a survivor artist. You know, from early childhood, I was tortured by psychiatry, and for me, kind of going through the kind of 70s and 80s, when the survivor movement was kind of at its height, that as a, you know, survivor of the mental health system was kind of a kind of a language, a term that was really important for people who had lived experience of the condition, as James calls it, to come together and to sort of challenge psychiatry. Language moves and changes, and language around mental health especially has kind of evolved in lots of different ways. And I think the kind of conversation that we've been having today about neurodiversity kind of reframes the narrative. You know, schizophrenia is a very kind of reductionist sort of term that has lots of stigma and taboo. But also, James, I know for you that it's very important for you, having lived with that label for a long time, that this project kind of reframes that narrative. And I wanted to ask you to talk a bit more about what it means to you to make art that talks about the taboo of mental illness.
Yeah, it's very important, isn't it? Because we've got so much to give, you know. And it's like sometimes we need support from the state. Let's hope we've got in the future we've got a kind state who understands that. And it's the project was really looking just beyond the zeitgeist, in a sense, and just saying, what will it be like if society and the media saw people with the condition as people who are thinking people, who are sensitive, or who've got great insight into the human mind, you know. So I wanted to present all that, and it's lovely to be able to, as I said before, it's lovely to be able to bring all these things together in one piece, you know, and to present people with the condition in a different light than how we normally see, or how people are presented normally, or how the original authors of schizophrenia wanted to present us, you know, back in the 19th century. It's different now, you know. I want to present something different, something realistic, something very much how I want people to be seen in the future.
One of the key moments for me really is how the operatic element kind of represents the subconscious of your characters, and I think that you've collectively you've done a great job of really kind of presenting voice hearing in a really positive way. You know, we all you know, as people with lived experience of with brains that kind of work in different ways, you know, we all know that those experiences can be fearful, but you know, fear is not a mental illness. You know, fear is something that all humans experience, and the fact is that auditory and visual hallucinations can also be fucking amazing. It can be wonderful to experience. And I think it constantly you know, hurts me when I see narratives around the condition, around neurodiversity being reduced to this sort of very narrow and idea of it being an illness that we have to be frightened of in society. So I think you've done a terrific job. And have you got anything more to say? I'll ask that to Rosie first.
Well, only one thing, just in response to your reaction to the film, which is to say it's wonderful to hear, and a huge thing for me when you say sort of non-reductionist approach, a huge thing for me with James's vision, which has been such a joy to participate in facilitating, is the fact this script is one where this not only is it non-reductionist, but it's enabling connection, and it's the recognition between the characters, and that's something that I think is not very prevalent in lots of the portrayal of narratives around different kinds of sensory and cognitive things, that they are isolating, shutting you in, rather than something which can absolutely enable this enormous connection at first sight between our two characters.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the discussion, the last part of that discussion, about the idea of this condition could be fearful, because I think there's also a beautiful sense of resilience in the film, and that's really what comes through. And when you were speaking in the beginning, James, about the text you're reading about schizophrenia and falling in love, I found that really interesting, because to me, part of the trauma of an acquired brain injury is the labeling that goes on in the boxes that you're shoved into. And I think what your film does is really presents these characters who are resilient and who are moving beyond that framing of this is how you can fall in love, this is how you can fall in love, this is how you can do this. Even when she talks about something about the dating apps and a way to like these preconditioned structures, I think that these are these really beautiful moments of seeing these people who are embodied and who move and who breathe and who create connections that are human and resilient. And why do we need to forget that because of a word that masks us as something else? So I think in that sense, the film is a great celebration, really, of embodiment and experience.
Thanks, Sarah. And James, do you have a final word?
Yeah, it's just like it's to have an idea and then to work with collaborators and to come together, just all of us coming together and thinking about it, whether it's us talking about the condition, whether it's talking about life, whether it's talking about how we can have more freedom within the current system, and all those things, and for the collaborators to come together and to make something very real and very sort of very just what I wanted to depict and to share, you know. And that was a wonderful experience working with these people. It was amazing.
Thanks very much, James. And thank you to everyone out there listening in. Do watch out for Mirrored to the Core coming to a venue near you, hopefully at some point in the future. And big thank you to Alice Scott Hawkins, to Rosalind Parker, to Sarah Mace Dennis, and to James Paddock.